Factory farming. What do you think of when you hear the brand Tyson? Well, personally, I think of the brand in the freezer section at the store with the red advertising with the orange logo, and that represents my favorite dino nuggets when I was a kid. According to Shauna Gallagher, quote, "It turns out that the meat industry and corporate giants like Tyson Foods are directly linked to this environmental catastrophe in the Gulf of Mexico and many others," end quote. In my persuasive speech, I will be persuading you that by buying factory farm products, you are supporting them, and how moving toward smaller, locally made products is the better option, and as well as how these farms harm the environment. Tyson, Johnsonville, Cargill, and Hormel. In my audience analysis, I listed some farm names to see which ones were the most recognized. Tyson Foods, Johnsonville, Hormel Foods, and Cargill Meats were highly selected. These are the massive names you see at the grocery stores and what I think of when I hear the word factory farms. These names represent the nasty, crowded, and polluting factory farms that people tend to forget about. And the data I collected, the majority of people in this class buy their food based on brand name and how cheap it is. That means factory farm products. Quote, the ultimate irony is that the very people buying these cheap products will wind up footing the bill for externalized costs. Taxpayers underwrite billions of dollars in government subsidies that provide steeply discounted feed for animals on factory farms, end quote, Control 64. So this graph is the large farms, and the one over there is the small farms that the class voted on if they knew or not. Most people don't know why they should be supporting small localized farms, but if this doesn't change your mind about supporting these massive farms, I don't think anything will. Surveys show that 95% of Americans believe farm animals should be treated well, but 99% of farm animals are raised in conditions that closely resemble a horror movie. In response to a string of shocking undercover investigations revealing downed dairy cows with jabbed forklifts, chickens laying on top of rotting corpse of cage mates, and pigs beaten with metal poles. I got that from Control 21. These are some examples of conditions specific animals have in these farms, like cattle, chickens, turkeys, and pigs. Private investigators have gone into factory farms and have proof of photos of the terrible things that go on and how they deal with the dead animals on their farms. These corporations are not clean for as much money as they make. They could do a much better job of caring for their animals and keeping things cleaner, but they choose not to. They are not sanitary operations whatsoever because the contaminants from dead animals are intermixed with the living ones. This should change your mind the next time you're at the store thinking about getting those Tyson nuggets that you've always liked. Grandpa's Granary, just over in Wilma, Minnesota, sells meat just like we buy in the store, only it is 100% natural and the animals produced are treated humanely. In small farms, they have enough animals that are just manageable enough to care for under the care of their farmer. Other Minnesota-grown meat farms include Strebo Farms in Granite Falls and Johnson Heritage Farms in Rice, which majority of the class had not heard of before, even though they're even closer than like the Tyson headquarters. Personally, my opinion is I refuse to buy meat from the store because it grosses me out that we really have no clue where it comes from, what the animal ate, and how the animal was treated. Most of the time I ask myself, is this even meat? Because we truly don't know what is in the product we eat. I raise my own beef, so that's the only meat I decide to eat. So I think supporting local farms that are not even like 20 miles from here are worth supporting and buying from because they're clean all the way through an animal's life and they do proper practices all the way through the animal's life versus the factory farms that you just saw. They know exactly what their animals eat and they aren't living over dead animals that they live with. While the huge companies like Tyson and Cargill that make too much money for the ways that they treat their animals, and they also give their animals antibiotics to promote growth. Quote, ironically, Johns Hopkins researchers have compared CAFOs themselves to nightmare hospitals, where everyone is given antibiotics, patients lie in unchanged beds, hygiene is non-existent, infections and reinfections are rife, waste is thrown out the window, and visitors come and leave at will. That was from Sire and Laura, quoted in Pluhar, page 457. Another quote I found was, every day 23 million animals are killed on these farms, around 266 every second. And I got that from Roberson. In reality, we never actually see the 23 million animals ourselves, even though we're told these statistics. These animals lie behind the massive doors on chicken or turkey farms that the doors hide on the road when we pass them. Or if we actually do see them, they're in a semi-truck on the way to the butcher plant with white feathers flying everywhere. And as you can kind of see, that's a Tyson Foods truck. From my audience analysis, most people go to the store looking for certain brands and cheap options. Instead of buying these products, we should support local farms with better meat from start to finish. According to the Chicago Fed Letter, quote, among approximately 8,000 dairy farms in Wisconsin in 2018, 312 of them were CAFOs. The number of Wisconsin dairies shrunk by roughly half since 2004. The number of CAFOs had more than doubled since 2005. Small dairy farms shuttered and large operations multiplied. I got that from Opedal. So far I've gone over what the factory farms stand for, shocking statistics, why we should support small farms versus large farms, and how CAFOs have taken over. In my audience analysis, I've found that most people didn't really know the correct answer, how they harm the environment, so I will talk about that. Quote, modern conveniences have not only impacted what we eat, but have drastically increased how much meat we consume. Americans now consume approximately 200 pounds of meat, fish, and poultry per year, and that's an increase of 50 pounds a person from 50 years ago. That was from Richards and Richards, page 31. People have started to increase meat in their diets over the years, and it shows, like that graph above, red being before and the blue being like the increase now. And this has caused manure pits to increase in size, which means more waste and risk of seepage into waterways. Quote, odorous compounds from factory farming operations can seep into shingles, siding, and fabrics, and then can be released into the heat of the day. That was from Richards and Richards 40. This shocked me because that's like on our own houses that can get into. A fun fact is all the total pig farms in North Carolina can produce as much sewage as the entire human population in California. And this sewage can seep into the clean groundwater that we consume. Quote, Tyson Foods produces 1 in every 5 pounds of meat, over 20% of chicken, beef, and pork. That's from Gallagher. When farmers fertilize their fields, only 30% actually stays on the plants and the rest runs into waterways. Quote, the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico is 8,000 square miles. No marine life can live there because of the fertilizer spillage from Tyson meats. And that's from Gallagher. This article linked Tyson Foods back to the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, so all that color is where no marine life can live, and that's a manure pit full of sewage. In my speech today, I told you to stop supporting factory farms and instead support small and local farms because they don't harm the environment. I'm going to end with a quote. Next time you see chicken breasts on sale for $2.99 a pound, the money is the tip of the iceberg. The slaughterhouse worker with tendinitis and PTSD, the chicken whose short, miserable life was taken, and the community giving 300,000 gallons of water to the slaughterhouse worker and paid the true price. That was from Control 64. Thank you for listening to my speech.